Assalamualaikum and good morning, children. How are you today? I hope you are fine. Let's get started with today's lesson. For today's lesson, we are going to learn a new grammar topic. Relative pronoun. Now let's take a look at the sentences. The woman who was shouting was angry. My garden, which is small, looks spacious. The car that drove right past me was red. The girl whose brother is in my class is nice. The man whom I sent a letter will help you. All the underlined words are what we call relative pronouns. In this lesson, we are going to see how and when we are going to use who, which, that, whose, whom, and what. The relative pronoun can refer to several things. A noun. I know the person who built this house. Who here is a relative pronoun, and the carpenter is a noun. A pronoun. She can tell me nothing that can change my mind. That here is a relative pronoun, and nothing is a pronoun. A subclause. She told us we could go home, which came as a surprise. Which here is the relative pronoun, and we could go home is the subclause. A main clause. I failed my exams, which I had not expected. Which here is the relative pronoun, and I failed my exams is a main clause. The word or words a relative pronoun refers to is called the antecedent. For example, there was a man who was quite clever. A man here is the antecedent. She told us to leave, which was quite a shock. To leave here is the antecedent. The part of a sentence that contains the relative pronoun is called a relative clause. For example, there was a woman who was quite beautiful. Was quite beautiful here is the relative clause. He told us to leave, which was quite a shock. Was quite a shock here is the relative clause. Now let's look at the first relative pronoun, who. We use who when the antecedent is a person. For example, her cousin who is 5 is learning to speak English. Here, the cousin obviously is a person, so we use who. My neighbors who are old complain a lot. Neighbors here are people, so we use who. Which. We use which when the antecedent is not a person. The bike which he forgot to lock was stolen. She asked for my help, which I found charming. The bike here is a thing, so we use which. She asked for my help here is an entire clause, so we use which. that. In order to use that, we need to find out whether the clause that we use as a relative clause is non-restrictive or restrictive. For non-restrictive relative clause, it provides information that can be omitted. For example, my Uncle Bob, who is a butcher, has a cat. Now here, my Uncle Bob has a cat is a perfect sentence. And who is a butcher is the additional information. For restrictive relative clause, it provides information that cannot be omitted. For example, the people who live here are lovely. Now we don't know what kind of people, so we add who live here. This is a house which is very old. Now we don't know what kind of house, so we add which is very old. In a restrictive relative clause, who and which can be replaced by that. For example, the people who live here are lovely. The people that live here are lovely. This is a house which is very old. This is a house that is very old. Whose. Whose is used as a possessive form of who. For example, the man whose bike was green laughed at me. My friend whose pencil was lost cried at me. Whom. We use whom in formal use instead of who, and in restrictive clauses only. For example, the doctor whom I told you about is friendly. What. We use what when there is no antecedent. For example, what you saw is unique. When she sees what you have made, she'll be speechless. What strikes me is that he didn't apologize. Okay class, for your task today, please click the link I gave you in your WhatsApp. That's all for today's lesson. I hope you have learned a lot. Thank you for watching and bye-bye.